Panasonic captures headlines at CES. Welcome back to Techstination. I'm Fred Fishkin. Joining us from Panasonic, our corporate communications manager, Dan Unger. Hi, Dan.
Good morning. How are you?
Terrific. And Sean Robinson from the Lumix Live channel on YouTube. Hi, Sean.
How's it going?
Terrific. Well, Dan, with CES in full swing, Panasonic has unveiled some smart new technology. Tick some things off here. There's the car audio system designed for electric vehicles to use much less battery power. There's an update for in-vehicle infotainment, allowing the use of both Siri and Alexa. An air purifier designed for cars that fits into a cup holder. And of course, some beautiful new big screen TVs. I'm sure you're getting lots of traffic there, Dan.
It's been busy, absolutely.
And on the sustainability front, you're giving discounts to people who trade in any old electric shaver, Panasonic or otherwise, to purchase Panasonic's MultiShape. And I guess that can do just about everything except make the morning coffee. Tell me about it, Dan.
Nearly, yeah. So it's a multi grooming device. So it has everything from a shaver to various trimmers to a toothbrush to a nose hair trimmer, and all these different types of features use a single battery base. So rather than having lots of different things you have to charge, you have a single base that goes from one product to the next, which is wonderful. It sort of fits in with our entire sustainability efforts we're making right now.
Yeah, and this trade-in program, the idea is to recycle at least some of what people send in these shavers, right?
Right. The batteries can be recycled, and the idea is that those batteries actually go back into the ecosystems. So you actually have a circular use of the battery. So we're working with various partners, and the battery will eventually go back into an EV vehicle, such as Tesla batteries, which is part of what we work on.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, Panasonic has been a big player in bringing EVs to market and the growth there with the battery technology.
Correct. Yes. So we're really trying to. We don't want things going into junkyards or into landfill, and to reuse these batteries and the other items that are there is really the idea.
And what's the big news for you there on the TV front?
Well, we announced a new OLED, and that's exciting. It's one that's more designed for gaming than any of our other versions, but of course it's a regular TV. It's highlighted within the booth, and we actually have a small gaming area, and we'll have a speaker talking about that today and tomorrow. But it's a very, very thin OLED. It's not available in the US right now, but it's something that a lot of people are very captivated with.
Terrific. And then two new mirrorless full frame cameras, the S5 MarkII and the S5 IIX. Sean, we're going to bring you in here for a look. What's new and different?
Yeah, so the S5 MarkII and by extension the S5 MarkII-X are what we're really kind of leaning into as our next phase, or you know, the kind of next generation of the Lumix line of cameras. And for anyone that's followed the brand long enough, you know that we've used contrast-based focusing systems with our existing lineup that was supplemented with DFD and AI recognition for focusing. But with this new set of cameras, we've added phase detect autofocusing into the mix now, so that we can now have class-leading autofocusing while still maintaining all of the, you know, kind of crazy high-end photo and video specs that we've offered in our platform. And when we start working with, you know, 24 megapixel sensors and all these high-end video bit resolutions and bit rates, we really started looking and finding that, you know, modern day social content creators needed a platform, needed a tool that became the most reliable option that they could go for. And our engineers, in my opinion, I think, knocked it out of the park with these two cameras. They're just a joy, and they're being received incredibly well so far.
And you probably mentioned some, but what are some of the key differences in these models from the previous generation, which was brand new, the S5?
Oh yeah. Yeah, so just like the original S5, it's a 24.2 megapixel full frame CMOS sensor. It's based around our L mount. So we have access to Sigma, Leica, and Panasonic lenses as all native first party. But the big kind of key differences here is, aside from autofocusing with phase detect, we've added the ability to do things like 6K recording in open gate. So using the full sensor height and width. We kind of have this thing that if you're buying a camera and you have a full frame sensor, we feel you should be able to access and use the entire thing. It's able to do 6K video recording in 17:9, 5.9K and 16:9. We've got things like 4K 48 frames per second, so an actual solid resolution and frame rate combination for slow-mo effect and post. We've even added full HD up to 120 frames per second with this. But really the biggest shift, I think, when it comes to looking at the body differences between these, because it's the same base chassis as the original S5, is that we've built in this incredibly slick cooling solution for the camera that allows an active cooling system in it. So it's got a fan, it's got ventilation, an air intake, and exhaust. But we built it into the unused space that mirrorless cameras typically have, found around what used to be the pentaprism in these cameras. So unlike even our own trends with the GH6 or an S1H or some of the others out there that are beginning to add active cooling solutions, not having to put it onto the back of the camera, which adds weight, it adds bulk. We've just been able to, build this in so that it actually becomes very, kind of seamlessly built into this platform. But then we also took it a step further. As we mentioned, there is also an S5 MarkII coming out that will follow the S5 Mark II by a couple of months. But with the MarkII, we're offering the ability to do 800 megabits per second all intra recording. We're giving the ability to record Apple ProRes at up to 5.8K. The camera also supports USB SSD recording, so you're able to plug in an SSD off the shelf and record both photo and video to that. And then we've added things like wired and wireless IP streaming for this. So same thing that we released back with the GH5 Mark II. And both of these cameras do have the capability as well for outputting raw video data over HDMI into an Atomos Ninja 5 Plus recorder for being able to record Apple ProRes RAW. Now, one of the things that we did with this setup is we got a lot of feedback from the community, from photographers and videographers. And there are a lot of people out there that, while all of these video specs that I just rattled off about the S5 Mark II are awesome, they're great, and they're incredibly valuable to a lot of people, there's a lot of consumers and users out there that say, I'm never going to use those features. It's not my area. I don't need that high level of functionality. So they want a lesser expensive option, but not sacrificing things like image quality and focusing. So we kind of went back to the drawing board and said, all right, fine. You can have an S5 Mark II. That camera, you can get raw over HDMI if you want. We have the SFU2 unlock code for that, similar to what we've done in the past. But we made them separate options so that consumers have choice. These days it's all about choice. And because of that, we're able to get the S5 Mark II down at $19.99 for the body only in the US. But not have to make the S5 Mark II that much more expensive for those that want it. So we're at a $19.99 price point for the S5 Mark II body, but then a $21.99 price point for the S5 Mark II X. That adds all of that extra, kind of option there. And then last thing that I'm probably the most excited about here is that modern mirrorless cameras and digital cameras, we know, we've got big white logos plastered all over them with the branding, and they're kind of flashy. we decided to just black out all of the logos on the camera. So you have this nice blacked out Lumix logo on the front, this kind of ghosted out logo of the S5 Mark II on it. And then we went more premium on the command dials and options on it. So instead of screen printed labeling on them, these are laser etched. They're backfilled with like a nice, kind of gray tone there. And to me, it's one of the like kind of most slick looking cameras I think we've ever seen in the market. So I'm super excited.
Nice, very nice touches. And when is it that people can get their hands on these?
Yeah, so the S5 Mark II that we announced a couple days ago, that will be shipping in the US by the end of January. So really short lead time on that one. The S5 Mark II X will be released in the spring. And coming in the spring, when the S5 Mark II X is released, that's when the SFU RAW over HDMI update will be supported for the S5 Mark II. And that's also when we'll be releasing the firmware update for Live View Composite to be added into the S5 Mark II and then shipped with the S5 Mark II X.
And you've already mentioned a model or two. Dan, you're still in the Micro Four Thirds space as well with some very highly respected cameras. In fact, I think the GH6 is a CES 2023 Innovation Awards honoree.
That's correct. Yes, we're very proud of.
And
And
when
received,
if photographers may ask, is the commitment still there for that format with all that you're doing in full frame? What's the answer?
Absolutely, yes. We were going to continue to work both in the Micro Four Thirds space and the full frame space. So,
Are you seeing different customers?
I think so. A lot of people that are in the using Micro Four Thirds and have purchased the glass, the lenses, certainly want to continue that. That's a large investment. They like this sometimes a smaller camera. Not that there's a great deal of difference between the S5 Mark II and the GH6, but it gives them the opportunity to continue with the hardware that they're already using or the system that they're already using. But they're going to run in parallel. One is not exclusive of the other.
Yeah.
John, you want to comment on that?
Yeah. So there's also a lot of technical differences between a full frame system and a Micro Four Thirds sensor. We look at the GH6 and where Micro Four Thirds sits in the industry is that technology has moved a lot faster when you're working with a smaller sensor in the areas where you can get faster readout for these sensors. So you get lower rolling shutter. You have the ability to do faster native frame rates with the technology at the level that it's at now. So just because we're focusing on the S5 Mark II right now, obviously everyone wants to know the newest, latest, greatest of what's released. I firmly meant what I said before, that this is a new phase. This is a new chapter for us. So our commitment to Micro Four Thirds and the S series and the L-mount Alliance is stronger than ever. And with this release, I think people can be really excited for the bright future that we'll have sharing both systems, because again, it's about choice. Photographers, videographers, social content creators, whoever you are and whatever you want to call yourself, you should have choice. You should have options. And Panasonic, I think for the 100+ years that we've been a company, it's all been about the consumer. It's been about the world and making products that make your life easier. And both of these lines are it, especially from my perspective as a photographer and videographer on the side. So,
Dan, last line is yours. Where should people go for more info?
Well, there's information press release wise at panasonic.com /CES. That's probably the best place to get the immediate information.
Terrific. Dan Unger, Sean Robinson, thanks for spending time with us.
Thank you, Fred. It's been a pleasure.
thanks, Fred.